Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday morning for us. And I like Monday mornings because it is the only morning that Rick and I are getting up together and we have absolutely nowhere that we need to go. So yeah, Monday mornings, they're kind of special around here. So it's later in the morning today, but anyways, I just hope that everybody wants to stick around for a little bit of my day, and I will talk to you in just a little while. Hello again, everyone. Well, after making the Velveeta cheese yesterday, I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to make some macaroni and cheese. And yes, I know it's probably, high in carbs, lots of fat, but I haven't had this in absolutely years. And so I am going to make my mother's recipe. And we each have our own recipes, but I thought maybe you might like my mom's recipe because, she grew up during the Depression, and then she married, right after World War II. So they kind of did things maybe a little bit differently. So this is what the ingredients are. You use 1/4 cup of butter, which is really just a half a stick, and 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 teaspoon to 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 2 cups of milk, 1/2 teaspoon of dry mustard. And one of the things that she did is she always put in 1 small, very finely grated onion. Well, I couldn't do that with my kids. They just wouldn't do that. So what I always did was I substituted 1/8 teaspoon of onion powder for that. And then 2 cups of macaroni that, you're going to, bring your water to a boil and cook and drain. So the next thing you need, of course, is our Velveeta cheese, which we happen to make 16 ounces. And that is, it's equivalent to a 16-ounce Velveeta. So that is what we're going to use. I have it all cubed up and ready to go. I have all my ingredients there ready to go. And I'm just going to, start like you normally do. You put the butter in a pan and you melt it, and then you add the flour and you make a paste, and then you add your salt and your pepper and you stir that up, and then you slowly add your milk and you bring it into a nice white sauce. So that is what I'm going to do. And we'll see how this works out. So as you can see, I have my macaroni cooking, and my white sauce is going to be getting thick here. And the other thing that I forgot to tell you, though, is that we're going to bake this in the oven for about 25 minutes at 350. And her directions say to lightly grease the top of your bowl, the sides and top of your bowl. And so I just sprayed mine with some ghee, and I'm assuming that's because it's going to kind of get brown there, and it probably makes it easier to clean. So anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and let this get thickened, and I will add my spices, my dry mustard and my salt in that, and then I will add my cheese and the Worcestershire sauce, and we're going to see what this tastes like. Now I wanted to bring you back because I wanted to show you how this is all bubbly. And now is when we are going to be adding our homemade Velveeta cheese. Now I temporarily turned the heat off because I didn't want my white sauce to burn. It just makes it easier that way. You don't have to worry about it burning. So and then I'm just putting it all in there like that and kind of give it a mix and let it melt. And now I'll go ahead and turn it back on a low flame to let it finish melting. My macaroni is nearly done. It only has a couple more minutes. So we're almost there. I'm just going to set this here so that the hot burner doesn't bother my pan. I'm just going to dump this one into there. And I'll scrape that out in a minute. What else I wanted to tell you is that my mother would cut up about 3 slices of bread, and she would put these cubes on top of her casserole with a few dots of butter and put it in the oven to bake it that way. So I am going to do the same thing, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's all done. For today's devotion, we will be reading from 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from temptation and to keep the unrighteous under punishment for the day of judgment. As Christians, we are engaged in a battle, a spiritual war between good and evil. Our adversary, that old serpent who is called the devil and Satan, has been engaged in confrontation with humanity from the moment God breathed life into man and Adam became a living being made in the image and the likeness of God. The enemy has targeted many Old and New Testament saints in different ways. And in 2 Peter chapter 2, we are told that twisted teachers and their false doctrines are one of the main challenges Christians will encounter during the church age. Satan has many ways he seeks to weaken and deteriorate the faith of God's people. And the propagating of lies and deceit is one of the destructive weapons about which we are being warned. We are reminded of God's divine nature, his supernatural power, and his promises to his people. We are given an incredible resource in his written word, and this chapter of 2 Peter gives a comprehensive outline of the rebellious nature of these false teachers and describes them like irrational animals, creatures of instinct, deceitful, and their desire for sin is never satisfied. This chapter is a warning to the wicked and an encouragement to the faithful, for it reminds us that God is faithful to fulfill his plans and purposes, and that we will not be overcome by evil. There is just a few instances mentioned here that demonstrate both the Lord's judgment of the wicked and the Lord's deliverance of his people, showing that all things work together for the eternal good of those that love the Lord, even when we fail or we are going through difficult times. His first example is of the judgment of the angelic rebellion and the punishment that awaits them on Judgment Day. We are also reminded of Noah and his family, who found grace in the eyes of the Lord, and the blessings that Job, who was righteous in all his ways, finally received. And also of Sodom and Gomorrah as an example of what will happen to ungodly people, as a classic demonstration that the wicked will both be judged and punished. There is also a reference to Lot, who believed God's word, yet failed to live the godly life that honors the Lord, pointing out that if the Lord rescued righteous Lot, who was greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked and lived among them day after day and was tormented over their lawless deeds that he had saw and heard, does this not show that God knows who are his? That he knows our heart and is able and willing to rescue all his people, even when we fail him. We are reminded in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13, that tells us that when we are faithless, he remains faithful to his blood-bought children. And with that, I want to remind you, life happens. Let's enjoy it. And no matter how terrible things become, may we never be tempted to lose heart in life's difficult circumstances when we see the wicked flourish. May we maintain our trust in the Lord despite the deteriorating world situation that we witness and false teachers that are flooding our places of worship. God is not mocked, and judgment and punishment will be handed out to the wicked in his time and in his way. And deliverance is assured to those who are his, for all his ways are perfect, and his judgment altogether righteous. God bless. And I will talk to you tomorrow and in the comments below.